All right, we're back for another episode of the Other League Pod. I think this is episode 4. So, Snyder, welcome back. Hope you had a nice vacation.
I
Not so
did.
nice, I guess, for your fantasy team, but we'll get to that soon.
Straight to it. Yeah, vacation was a lot better than my week 5. Um, but yeah, it was good. No, we took a trip down to Ocean Isle with the fam. First road trip that we took with the kids, so that was an adventure. But yeah, it was good, man. Allie's family went to Ocean Isle when she was younger, growing up, so it was like the first time we went back, and or she went back in like 10, 15 years or something. So
That's
it
cool.
was cool.
It's neat.
Yeah, it was good. It was beautiful down there, and like wasn't too hot. It was like perfect. Yeah, it was awesome.
Sick,
So,
dude.
but yeah, good. Yeah, I was following along, watching the games on my phone on Sunday. Um, and then, or as much as I could. We were traveling mostly Sunday.
Mm,
But yeah, and then I, followed along. Got back on Saturday, so I was able to sit and watch all the games on Sunday. Um, started with the Jets game on in London, and it was a rough week, rough
yeah,
weekend for me in week 5. But yeah, we're back, and I'm excited to get back. I heard you had a couple guys holding it down while I was out.
yeah.
Anthony and Andy heard the pod. I tuned into to a little bit of both, and sounded good, and it's all rolling, man. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
excited
Well,
to be back on the mic.
we had to kind of pivot after whatever happened to us on that hour and a half session we put together.
Oh my
But
God. Yeah, we were just practicing, I guess.
yeah, it's
But
good rehearsal. But
we're
yeah,
good.
we're recording. We're good. Yeah, let's get into week 5. I mean, this is definitely I think how Andy kind of appropriately said last week. It definitely is now kind of starting to get into make or break just because of depth, injuries, and then the buys. The buys are starting to come in. You kind of
Hmm.
you kind of forget about it in the early weeks, but yeah, I mean now guys are, you know, this is the buy time and some big, heavy hitters were on buy this past week. I mean, we'll start with my matchup just because we're on top here, but
Yep.
um, I get Ryan without Saquon. That was nice. Nice
Yeah.
to not see him in the lineup this week, but overall, pretty solid outing from both of us. I had some big points early on. Obviously Drake London, and then that early time slot for me was real good, and then it started getting a little scary towards the end of that end of our matchup here. Just kind of seeing him kind of climb back a little bit, especially with Dak playing on Monday night. But yeah, good outing for the Green Bowl, and 4 in a row. It feels good. It feels good to be on a little streak here. A little early, but yeah, it was a good week. What'd you say? Any
Yeah.
takeaways? I
No.
guess.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, for your team, obviously we were waiting for the for London to kind of take the next step into being what, you kind of drafted him to be as a second round pick. I think you saw kind of that ultimate ceiling that we were thinking he could have all off season. It was kind of build like, he finally got a quarterback, and and then week 1 with Cousins coming out looking super gimpy. Kind of the offense kind of getting its footing under them with the new regime, the first time play caller. It was going to take a little bit of time, but I think you kind of saw it all culminate in the game against Tampa on Thursday, where Cousins throws for 500 yards, throws 50 plus
So,
times. I mean, it. I don't know why they would kind of get back to a run heavy approach. I think, as the more Cousins gets healthier, away from his Achilles, and gets more familiar with the offense, I think they're going to continue to kind of rely on London. I mean, 12 catches on 13
yeah,
targets. I mean, one, that's an absurd catch rate. So
that's
I
true.
mean, he was just the alpha there. So I mean, he's moving forward. He's got a lot of nice matchups coming up. He's got Tampa in 3 weeks again. He's got a huge matchup against Carolina. That's another eruption spot, and then Seattle at home. Kind of in between those two. So I mean, the outlook for London kind of moving forward. I mean, I think he should be treated as a low end one, maybe a high end two every week. And then I think the big story for your team, not only with Love being healthy, but the resurgence of DeAndre Swift. I mean, he
Yeah,
moving
huge.
into where he was before, with how awful he looked, not just in terms of his fantasy points and what he was producing, but like just on the field, I mean, his vision was looking rough, and then they kind of doubled down on him. They removed Khalil Herbert from the game plan, and it's
Yeah,
just been a two-man backfield with him and Khalil Herbert, or him and Roshan, excuse me.
Roshan,
So,
yeah.
I mean, moving forward, he's got a beautiful matchup against Carolina coming up. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, for your team, if I think, if Dalton Kincaid is kind of your one spot that, might be a little iffy, I still think they're going to figure it out in Buffalo. They're too good not to. So, I mean, yeah, your team looks good moving forward. Love getting healthier. It was his first game back. I mean, I think you're just going to keep it rolling. So, kind of moving over to Ryan's team.
Oh my
I
God.
mean, I really like Ryan's team. I mean, with Saquon on a bye, he kind of caught you at a bad time. I mean, but still putting
Sure.
up 114, without, his arguably the number one player in fantasy. I still think is a really encouraging output for him. Henry continues to churn yards and score touchdowns. I think he still leads the league in touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken.
And he scored
Um,
every game,
yeah,
at least one every game.
and yep, and he's got Andrews was kind of a Hail Mary play, but he got there with 4 catches for 55. Still kind of the third target in tight end, at least in terms of
Mm,
output. But, um, I think Ryan's team moving forward is going to be, kind of strong as we kind of go along. So his bench is a little bit potentially iffy, but I mean, when you have Saquon and Henry kind of
true.
carrying you, and then, you got Jameson Williams who can spike, and Ayuk as he kind of gets more into
Yeah,
it,
Ayuk
as he gets kind of more comfortable in the
had to be
flow of the
encouraging.
season. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, both teams I think are looking like potential playoff teams, at least early on. So, yeah, it was a good matchup. I mean, it was close. Like,
Yeah.
it could have went either way, but I mean, I think feeling good about both teams kind of moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's really nothing else to add in. I mean, you kind of highlighted. I mean, I felt like every time I was like updating or looking up at the red zone, it was Ayuk catching like every ball for San Francisco. I mean, it's got to be encouraging
Yeah.
just to see that as we'll kind of get to Pittman, in terms of, I mean, good outing obviously this week, but looks like he's going to be on the shelf for a little bit. So nice to see how you come through for him. Still think Ryan's got a good squad, like you said. He'll be up there.
Yeah, and for just one thing about Pittman, it came in today that he has a back injury, which it's kind of like a hamstring where it can be kind of tricky, and it's not something where I think I heard Stefania Bell, who does this stuff at ESPN. It's not like a sprained ankle where it's healed and you're kind of good to go. It's something that could be a little bit more tricky, and you're kind of just like, oh, I feel good, but then like one tweak and you're kind of out again. So could be a little tricky kind of moving forward with Pittman's injury. But I mean, I think Pittman, um, was at least for the first couple of weeks, wasn't necessarily one of his most relied on players. I still think he has Godwin and Jameson kind of locked in as his top two receivers, or
Yep.
as his top three, along with Ayuk. So yeah, I mean, we'll kind of see, but I mean, Ryan's team with Saquon and Henry is kind of is should be a force every week.
Absolutely. This is one that I and Andy got way off. I mean, what an explosion from Arby's this week.
Huge week.
Yeah, it's a monster week. I mean, it would have been the third highest. What is the third highest point total of the league so far this year? But yeah,
Okay.
he just goes off. I mean, going down I mean, Brian Thomas Jr. looks sick. I said that last week. I mean, guy looks like a stud. Anything out of LSU, coming from the receiver standpoint, like just take shares in them. They just produce studs.
So good.
Um, Higgins, like he's gotta love seeing that. I mean, you're not gonna get that every week, but Joe Burrow's the number one quarterback right now. I think in touchdown
Yep.
throws and maybe QBR. I mean, he's just chucking it. Like he's going off. So I mean, maybe he can sustain these monster outings. Because their defense is so bad, they're gonna have to chuck it. They're gonna have to outscore
So
teams.
it's so bad.
It's putrid. Yeah, it's really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, his lowest point total was his tight end who puts up 11.5. I mean, geez, Arby's, what an outing.
Yeah, huge week. And the start of Chase Brown over Zach Moss. I'm not sure if Moss had something coming into the week. I
Got hurt. He
wasn't
got hurt
as I
in the game though.
he okay. Yeah, so I mean he was projected for 11, but the shrewd play to place Chase Brown over him, I assume he played it because of game script. Maybe he assumed that Cincinnati would throw a little bit more um on Baltimore because Baltimore, for as good as their defense was last year, they've been a sieve against the pass this year.
Mhm.
And so Chase Brown, I think, is kind of, especially with Moss maybe having a high ankle now, is pretty much a locked in, I think, RB2 kind of moving forward. So yeah, and Ben catches Jordan Winnington,
Playing well.
getting getting 7 for 89. But I mean, with the stack with Lawrence and Thomas, Lawrence has, I think, his best week of the year. Um,
For sure it was.
and Jacksonville's offense actually looked
Yeah,
pretty
by far.
functional. And then, he gets the huge week from Higgins, and obviously Ken Walker, he's a weekly RB1. His usage
He's a
is
stud.
pretty nuts, especially in the passing game. So, yeah, huge week for Ben. I think got to feel good about that for him. So yeah, if you want to roll over
Yeah,
to Logue and kind of give
I
your
should
your
have.
take on where he's at.
Yeah, I mean, Love's a good team too. I mean, he got to be reeling a little bit just from the sake that he puts up 113 and just got absolutely slaughtered this week. Yeah, going up against Arby's. I mean, his team's good. I think Logan's team's still good. I mean, he's still grasping at straws. I say, kind of. I don't know, kind of just what he's doing at RB2. I mean, he threw another. We'll get to the Fabs maybe quickly, but I mean, yeah, another. He picks up Mostert this week for like $23 or something like that. So he's still not sure what he's doing with his RB2 spot. That's just kind of how he drafted, but I mean, he's kind of hitting everywhere else. I mean, Kamara on a points per game basis, I think is number one running back in fantasy.
I think so. Yeah.
I mean, he's been insane. I mean, kind of a subdue game against Kansas City. But he's been a rock for him. His receivers are good. CJ Stroud's good. Brock Bowers, I mean, we'll hit on him again. I guess we keep repeating it every week, but I mean, the guy's a stud. The guy's the number one tight end. I mean, he's just
Yeah.
and now he's got to get fed. I mean, with if Devontae's leaving, which all signs point to yes, this
Yeah.
is like their most easily their most talented pass catcher. I mean, he's just going to keep getting targets. I mean, look at it, 12 targets. I mean, now they have kind of a new quarterback at play, so we'll see what happens. But Brock Bowers has been just an absolute home run pick for Logue. I mean, Logue's got a good team. I don't think he can be upset with it. I mean, everywhere else he should have played. Could have played any of these running backs though. He ends up going with Gibson. Interesting, but he wouldn't have done anything. Ben goes off.
Yeah.
I mean, two good teams again. I mean, with the seventh playoff spot this year, it's going to be tight. And I think for that last spot, I mean, there's 7 or 8 really good teams so far in terms of just kind of how we've been going over it week by week.
hmm Yeah, I agree. Especially with his outlook kind of moving forward with the stack with Stroud and Diggs. Now with Nico on IR, we'll get to it with my team.
Yeah,
But Diggs, I
sure.
think for sure is the
Oh,
locked in one there. Stroud hasn't necessarily had that monster ceiling game where he's throwing 3, 4 touchdowns
no.
yet. He has faced, Chicago is a really good D. Minnesota has been destroying everybody. And then Buffalo obviously is a really good pass defense. They're kind of more of a run funnel. He has a tough matchup at New England this week as well. But yeah, I mean, Brock Bowers, man, that Moss touchdown that he had, he
Yeah,
should have had two.
listen.
Minshew sailed him, but he would have had two. But I mean, what a monster! And it's interesting because Logue, where he drafted him, I think he drafted him in the 7th round. Um,
Huh.
that I think that was like a round or two ahead of his where his ADP was. But I mean, if we're drafting now, I mean, Bowers is what, a 3rd round pick easily.
I
He's
mean,
just
you got yeah.
just
I mean,
just
he's definitely
just a
a
freak.
top
Yeah.
4 round pick for sure.
Yeah, just a
But
freak. Yeah, and then we'll see what happens with Tyreek. I think the latest I saw with Tua is that he's coming back in week 8. Maybe I think
that's
that's
what they're
like the
talking about.
timeline for when he's looking to come back.
Mhm.
So I mean, if Tua comes back, then Tyreek Hill is a week. At least if Tua comes back and he's right. I mean, Tyreek is a weekly, top 5 wide receiver. So I mean, yeah, I think Loke's team is going to be fine. He has Diggs, Evans, and Hill. That's If
Yeah,
his RB2 spot is the one slot he's trying to fill every week, I think he should feel good about it moving forward.
it's true. Good takeaway. All right, let's go to you. I mean, I would usually save some of these for last, but I think we should get this kind of in the middle of the app. Um,
Sure.
I mean, take it away. I guess. I mean, I'll add to it, but
Yeah.
this has got to be one of
Um,
the closest losses I've maybe ever seen.
yeah. I think I was thinking. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before. I think someone lost by like point 0.2, so it was close. It was very close. Um, I think there's been like one or two in our league's history, but I mean, losing by 0.14, I can't. I mean, if Xavier Worthy, if they were 2 yards further away, it would have been a 5 yard touchdown, and I would have won by a point or half a point or a point. I mean, but yeah, it was a sweat on Monday night. Brutal way to end. Also, Zach Ertz was wide open for probably like a 50, 60 yard gain. I can't imagine he would have scored, but Jaden Daniels just sailed it over his head. I made the last second swap of benching the Jets D because I thought this was a prime letdown spot for their defense. They ultimately showed up, and I lost 13 points and left it on the board there.
Oof,
Um, but
pretty much it.
yeah, I mean, and even with Nils, kind of his team falling short of where it should have been, to lose by that was kind of a gut punch. It was my fourth loss in a row. So we're kind of reeling here. Gino has been, I think he currently leads the league in passing yards.
Yeah,
He's not been throwing too many touchdowns. He's won a game. So there is some for the amount
he's
of
dead.
times he's throwing the ball, there is some touchdown regression kind of coming. I feel like with Gino, Collins going on IR. Maybe at some point this year I'll have the trio of AJ Brown, Nico, and Malik Neighbors together, but
Done.
we'll see on that. JSN moving forward at least is pretty much locked into my lineup weekly
It looks good.
as like a mid wide receiver 3 kind of play. Um, I thought this was a really good spot for Josh Jacobs. I'm actually a little disappointed with the 16.4. He scores his first touchdown of the year, but
That's
I
nice.
thought this was a huge smash spot for Jacobs. To kind of get there, only 73 yards. I think Jacobs is like fourth in the NFL in rushing, so I think
Yep.
he's pretty much locked into their workhorse role there. So I'm not really concerned with Jacobs moving forward. I just don't really know what his true ceiling is if they're going to keep if he's not going to be scoring as many touchdowns as I thought he would. Um, Tracy was a good play. I was between him and Bigsby. I had Bigsby in my lineup earlier in the week. Obviously that would have helped, especially with Bigsby playing against Indianapolis. I think they have one of the worst run defenses in the league. But and then Worthy gets there with the touchdown, but obviously not the result that I wanted. But and kind of moving forward, maybe I'm just kind of locked in to and dug into my priors, but I still like feel good about my team every week. I mean, I know like my projected
Yeah.
totals aren't too high, but I mean, I like Gino kind of as my QB1 with until Richardson kind of figures it out. Um, and Bigsby, we'll see what happens with their ETN. I don't think Bigsby's going to necessarily just like take over the backfield, but I think maybe it's more of like a potential 55-45 split with Bigsby getting more run on the ground and ETN getting more work as a pass catcher.
Yeah, I
Bigsby's
think
just
that's what
looked
they're
he's
gonna
looked
do.
he's looked so explosive as a runner. I think he's averaging like 8 yards a carry or something.
It's crazy.
So yeah. So yeah, I mean we'll kind of see. AJ Brown, I get him back kind of moving forward. But yeah, I mean, just a brutal run out, you know, kind of what can
Yeah.
you do? One of those
I
things. And
mean,
it does kind of suck that I didn't capitalize on Nils having, I think, a lower than expected week, especially with CD, scoring less than 12, DK
uh,
scoring less than 10. Jordan Mason was held in check by
the
Arizona.
fumble.
So yeah. So I mean, kind of, it's just how it goes sometimes. So, one and
Yeah. I
four
mean, it's
and you know, what can you do?
yeah. I was just gonna say. I mean, and that I feel like that injury to Nico obviously happened on that touchdown catch. I mean, I feel like he was primed for a monster game if he would have played. I mean, that was pretty early on. It was in the first quarter or second quarter that he went out.
Yeah, first quarter.
So Yeah, so I mean, that just stinks. I mean, hopefully it gets right, but we've been playing the IR shuffle with some of the big name receivers that you have. So one's gonna,
Yep.
well, I guess, yeah, between AJ coming off and now the injury and now Nico going on, hopefully Neighbor stays healthy for you. But yeah, I would agree with your outlook. I think that's kind of a good takeaway. Your team on paper is pretty good. So we'll see more to come. I mean, Tank Bigsby, like you said, that's a nice little pickup. He might be able to, kind of relied on as your number two. I think they're certainly going to do a 50-50, or if not more, depending on, game script. I mean, he looked good, but yeah, Nils
Yeah.
squeaks one through. He gets to 4-1. He's been hot. He's a hot little beeve. He's now in second place. I think it's either his third or fourth one in a row. I'm not to go to the leaderboard here. Fourth, yeah. Jeez,
Fourth in a row.
he's
Yeah.
he's hot.
Where's he at in points? Can you scroll down?
496. So he's kind of on the lower end. He's,
Well,
I think, the only one.
566. That was his points against.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, I'm looking at the wrong line. 566. So yeah,
So kind of,
pretty
yeah,
much
right
on,
in the middle.
pretty much on. Yeah, I was gonna say pretty much on par with most
Yeah.
of us. I mean, I'm right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's
Yeah,
go. Hey,
I think Nils is a good team moving forward. Brian Robinson was on his bench and I think he was a little banged up coming into this. Still gets 2 touchdowns, but moving forward, I mean that offense is humming. So CD and it's interesting. It's pretty parallel with CD Lamb at least. Just to kind of highlight him because he hasn't necessarily had, I don't think
nothing.
like that huge. He's been steady. I think he's currently like maybe like a top 20 receiver right now, but he I think he was like at this point of last year, I think I read that he was like the wide receiver 20 at this point last year, and then he just went off like the
Hmm.
second half of the season. So, I think CD is he's gonna smash moving forward. But yeah, I mean, I think we're looking at there's a lot of teams that they kind of round into focus. We've talked about these last 3 matchups that we kind of highlighted first.
Yeah.
A lot of these teams I think are looking really solid. Like, I think we'll get to some other teams, but like you said, it's getting to be, kind of like nut crunching time where, another loss and if your team's looking at 1-5, like,
Yeah.
you better kind of go on a run. So, yeah, we can move on to the next matchup.
Yeah. Let's talk about some teams that are looking looking at the bottom of the barrel here. But we had that kind of talked about it. I mean, he had that monster Thursday night from Kirk Cousins. I mean, he got off the Thursday night scaries, whatever the hell Anthony wants to call them. It had to be nightmares. Every Thursday night leading up to this, he's had a pretty pitiful performance by somebody on his team. So he got Kirk Cousins to throw up 42, which is an absolute backbreaking way
Insane.
to start your matchup from Phil's standpoint. And then he had Rashad White, who basically hits his totals. I mean, outside of that, I mean, Anthony put together a pretty competitive team to somehow score 116. I mean, Shahid's been, kind of hit or miss. I mean, a little bit more hit than miss, I guess, overall. I mean, he had that one dud, but other than that, he's been really steady. I mean, people are talking about him maybe kind of not necessarily taking over, but just in terms of production over like Olave, just some consistency. I mean, he is the flyer. Now with Derek Carr going out, who knows? That offense is going to be totally different. Kamara definitely probably will get a little bit more of an uptick, but um, probably nice to see Shaheed throw up a nice little spot for him on Monday night just to kind of ease his tension a little bit to get his first win. Um, and then Stevenson must have been like I was kind of questioning in my head when we were going over the matchups. Like he was downgraded like to the not the backup. I think right like because of the fumble history like, and he just goes
Yeah.
pretty much off. Like he had a hell of a game. Like I wasn't really following too much. That game was so putrid. I didn't even there wasn't much going on. There was not a lot of touchdowns. Like I wasn't watching that game too much, but I mean, I know he
Yeah.
scored. I mean, that 19's a nice little number.
Yeah, it was so strange with Ramondre. Like the way that they handled the whole thing, they publicly came out and said that he's not starting anymore,
Yep.
which is really strange. They signed him to the contract extension this off season. They pretty much said that he was going to be the focal point of their offense, and then they publicly, after 4 weeks, just basically said he's demoted. And then I think it was like his first or second touch, he just like takes a 50
Yeah.
yard run to the house. So, yeah, I mean, it, Anthony's I mean, that was a hell of a play. I probably wouldn't have played him. Um,
Yeah. I agree.
but I mean, I don't know what other options he had.
Pretty much nothing.
But
Pretty much,
yeah, I
pretty
mean,
much nothing.
yeah, maybe I would have played Rome, but I mean, yeah,
Yeah, true.
I mean, but you know, yeah, good week. I mean, Chuba Hubbard has been a hell of a pick for him.
Really
And
has.
I think, yeah, and I think kind of moving forward, I don't know where Jonathan Brooks is. I don't think he's practicing yet.
They didn't open the window
And
yet.
yeah, they haven't even opened his window yet. So I mean, at least, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if Chuba, because they have a week 11 bye. It wouldn't surprise me if Jonathan Brooks is on the shelf and they open it up maybe around like week 9. Um, and then
Yeah,
he kind of gets ramped up in the bye. But I mean, Chuba's looked really good. Just
he
in terms
is.
of like what he's doing, he's getting tons of work. And
Crazy.
they're yeah. So I mean, yeah, I mean Anthony, he's been hanging in, man. Gets his first win of the year. But I mean, we'll see kind of moving forward, especially with Kirk. I mean, if he can, kind of stay
Yeah.
hot and
So
Atlanta's offense kind of keeps rolling. I actually thought it was a pretty good spot for Cortland Sutton. Kind of disappointing with them
sure.
putting up 34 or I guess 27 without the defensive touchdown. But um,
hmm
yeah, I
Phil
mean,
just
I don't have a
unlucky.
lot more to say. Yeah, Phil, man, I mean, you kind of go
Oh,
down
Aaron
where
Jones
Phil's
is
team
hurt.
is. Yeah, you kind of go down where Phil's team is after that massive 150 point week against me last week.
Big
Um,
off.
yeah, it's how
It
just
was, it
how
was
it
the
goes
top. It was
sometimes.
the top points for the week.
Just how it goes sometimes, man. I mean, I thought Fields was in a good spot against Dallas. He kind of gets there with the 2 touchdowns. A little only 27 yards rushing. Olave, I mean, I think Phil has two, at least, of the most disappointing players in fantasy, kind of thus far, with
This
Olave
guy's been so
and
disappointing.
Bijan, with where they were drafted. Um, you know, then you know,
Bijan's been a
then
backbreaker for the guy. But
just no
just
ceiling, man. I mean, his floor is solid. He's just
yeah,
like a solid low end RB1, high end two. But I mean,
first round
he
pick.
hasn't had
Like
I mean, he was second overall, and
yeah,
he's pretty much. It's strange because he's pretty much in the same role he was in last year without the receiving. Like he's not
yeah,
really involved in the receiving offense that much now that they're going, pretty three wide heavy.
yeah.
I mean, freaking Darnell Mooney's getting 15 targets and Ray McLeod's getting 10 targets. Like, I mean, I don't, I think Bijan, I think he'll ultimately like find sort of a higher ceiling. But I don't know if he's ever going to be that CMC type role, high end 20-point producer that I think we thought coming into the draft. Um, and then he loses Aaron Jones for what what was his injury? He was a
Hip.
hip
Yeah.
injury. He's week to week.
Yep.
Um,
Trying to buy this week
so
though, so
yeah,
we'll
he's
see what
got to buy
happens.
this week. So yeah, he's got a chance to come out against in week 7. But yeah, it was just kind of a rough run out for Phil. And then I mean
Just has no.
Waddle's pretty much unplayable until Tua comes back.
Yeah, he just like there's no home run hitters for Phil. I mean, that's really probably why he's 1-4. I mean, in the sense that like to your point, I mean, Bijan, yeah, you think maybe that's the guy that's going to give me, the 20 to 30 point weeks, every now and again. That's going
Yeah,
to really propel you. I mean, so yeah, tough outing. I mean, especially coming off of a pretty promising week from week 4 against you. Phil's got to be
yeah,
like, damn, this sucks. But yeah, I
yeah.
mean, no more winless teams anymore. Or yeah, I guess no more winless teams anymore. Blizzard comes
Nope.
out. We'll get to this matchup and just
Ooh,
explodes. Absolutely
explodes.
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 Biggest point total of the year. Also gets off the streak of 0-4. So him and Anthony are now in the win column.
Good
And
for us.
I mean, geez, look at the outing he had. I mean, Riggs basically hits his projection almost on the nose. Um,
Yeah.
but
Yep.
Rick just, I mean, I picked Rick 2 weeks in a row because I just wanted to see the guy get off the losing streak that he was on. But I had picked against him this week, and that backfired. He went. I mean, Lamar Jackson. That game was a shootout, obviously, but I mean that when that guy's on, man, seeing a 40-point week out of him is just it's fun. And he had
Yeah.
4 passing touchdowns. He didn't even get in with his feet, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, he looked great. I mean, his whole team looked awesome. I'm sure DJ Moore finally finding that connection a little bit with Caleb. Kind of running down the list. Javante actually looked pretty good this past week against Las
Yeah.
Vegas, which I thought was interesting. I mean, obviously, past
Yep.
getting the passing work too helped, but gets to play Trey Sermon, his guy that he just traded for. Traded Brock Purdy for
True
Trey
trade.
Sermon. Great trade. Ends up being a phenomenal trade for him, especially with Taylor
Yep.
being out. Hits on that, and
Yep.
then
Yep.
Kelsey's starting to round into form. I mean, we'll just highlight a little bit. I mean, kind of figured that
Yep.
with Rice going down that they had to get him involved, and I mean, geez, look at the target totals. I mean, they jumped, from 4.35 to 9 and 10 the last 2 weeks. They got to go to him. They got to find. He's got to find the rock from Mahomes. I mean, there's no
Yeah.
there unless they come through with some crazy trade, which I don't see happening. I mean, they're going to have to just make it work with the pieces that they have. And I mean, look what they're doing with Juju Smith. I mean, the guy was on the streets. Guy had 130 receiving yards this week. I mean, it's insane.
Crazy. Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
Downs. I mean, with this new Pittman injury, depending on who's playing quarterback, I mean, as much as you love Anthony Richardson, Flacco just produces in fantasy for these skill players. It's crazy for his receivers, I
Yeah.
really should say. And then Denver, what a spot with a touchdown.
Yeah.
Pretty
Really
much a
good
home
spot.
run. Yeah, I mean, go
Yeah.
ahead. I mean, not much to criticize Riggs on. I mean, happy to see him lose
Yeah.
again, but
Yeah.
yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead.
I don't have too much. I don't have too much to add on Rick's team. But I mean, Downs is a baller, man.
Yeah,
He's a really freaking good player. And I think with Flacco, I don't know how playable Downs is with Richardson if he does play. I guess maybe you still start him, but I mean, I guess he's gonna play. I don't know how you sit Darnell Mooney kind of moving forward with where
yeah,
he's been
it's
at
tough.
and how everything looks. I mean, he's got 3 touchdowns on the year in 5 weeks. So, and he had David Montgomery on a bye. So,
Yeah,
huge spot start with Trey Sermon. And I think DJ Moore, they're only throwing to like 3 receivers. So, I mean, Moore is definitely the locked in one, and Caleb continues to look better. So, yeah, I mean, I think with Lamar starting to get his footing this year. I think Baltimore's played their worst football in the first 2 weeks. I
mhm.
think they're going to start, really rounding into form and I don't know if there's a quarterback I would take over Lamar right now to start a team. Like if we were drafting now, I think I would take Lamar as the QB1. Um,
I agree.
but I mean, yeah. So, yeah. I mean, we can see. I think we can see Rick's team kind of getting hot. Maybe reeling off. Maybe like 3 or 4 wins in the next like 5 weeks or something.
Yeah, that
Um,
blizzard was so rough that it created a actual hurricane in Tampa where Rick's living. So,
yeah,
Rick, I
yeah,
glad to hear that. Glad to hear you moved it a little farther up north and you're out of that
yeah,
mess.
yeah.
But
Stay safe.
yeah,
Damn.
what an absolute
So funny.
blizzard that
Oh
hit
my
that
goodness.
that hit Steve this
Yeah,
week. Whew.
yeah. My goodness. Yeah, and I mean, kind of moving over to Steve's team. I mean, I mean, I think Steve's team is going to be like kind of around this point total most weeks. I mean, a lot of his guys don't really hit their ceiling. They just kind of have like solid floors. Like Allen has, one of his worst games of the year. Looked like he was knocked out. I don't know how he came back in the game.
That was incredible.
Um,
It was a play later too.
yeah, yeah. I mean, insane. But
No
and
sense.
Marv only with the 2 catches. Jaden Reed has one of the sickest catches I've ever seen
Should have been a peck.
on that
Yeah,
bomb. Yeah, on that bomb.
saved it.
But I mean, he only has, he doesn't score. Kyron only, he loses the fumble only with 15. Rico
Yeah,
Dowdle has his best game of the year, and Kittle,
Rico Dowdle looked good.
continues. Yeah, he did. Yeah, and he's further really cementing himself as
They're
further
number
away from
one.
Zeke in that pecking order. Yeah. So, um, I
It is
mean,
Gibbs to.
yeah, he's got a real good
I
team.
think
I don't
I
know.
think just to reiterate
Yeah.
like what Andy said last week about Josh Allen, like maybe he's kind of right. I mean, obviously a tougher matchup, but you know, we've seen two huge outings from Josh Allen and now three really subdued games, 16, 7 and like 11. I mean, one of those games was a blowout, but still, I mean, it's um going to be interesting to see if Josh Allen can, stay as that QB2 or three consistently for him because I think that's a big piece for Steve's team, kind of moving
Yeah.
forward. Everything else looks solid. I mean, George Kittle's
Yeah.
been the number one, or I think on a points per game basis. I mean, not total points, but
Yeah.
just with at the tight end spot. So he's solid all basically all the way around, and then he's got his 50 something dollar defense that's is producing. That I will say, Minnesota's defense
They
is
are, yeah,
scary.
they look like one of the best, three defenses in the league, at least in terms of how they can hold teams and just shut them down. Probably them, Denver, and I don't know. The Jets have been pretty solid too. But
Jets have it.
Josh Allen,
Yeah.
brutal matchup against the Jets this week. Josh Allen has been awful against the Jets in
Yeah.
the last 3 years. So we'll see. But I mean, yeah, I think Steve's team's solid. I don't know how you can start Pickens kind of moving forward, but I mean, I think Kyron, Rico every week, and Gibbs coming back, I think is
Yeah.
where he settles in. But yeah, I mean, we can move on to the next matchup. We got one more or two more? One more.
Just one more, yeah. So, and that's Riggs' second loss in a row, just to throw it in his face a little bit.
Mm.
But yeah, he's got a good team. I think he'll be around.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
My co-host from last week, I picked against him here. He obviously picked himself, and he got absolutely smashed as well. The Gooses are a good team. I mean, they're in first place.
Yeah.
Um, kind of, I'll go on Aaron's side just real quick. I mean, Purdy's been steady. I think he just, kind of is sick of Mahomes, and unfortunately, you're going to have to face that hurdle every week. I mean, Purdy's 15 isn't exactly the most eye-opening stat line if you're looking down his team list, even comparing it to Mahomes. But Mahomes is just, they're going to find ways to win, but he's not a good fantasy player right now. He hasn't been in 2 years. But this
Right.
guy, Jamar Chase, after us just kind of
Insane.
ripping him, is it's just
Yeah, you're
going
welcome. You're welcome, Aaron.
yeah. After we say he's not worth shit. No, I shouldn't say that. We just maybe was kind of moving him out from that top tier list, but I mean,
He's
Joe
he's
Burrow's.
fir- he's he's firmly in there now.
I was just gonna say, and
Yeah.
Joe Burrow is looking healthier than I anticipated. That just goes to show you how much some of this. There's too much reporting in the off season. There really is. It gets us way too invested in what they're putting out. But yeah, great to see. You gotta gotta feel good. He's back. Jamar Chase is going off every week for him. He's up there in that category with honestly a couple of your receivers in terms of the points per game basis. If he's not two, you think he might be close to one. I mean, it's close.
Yeah,
So
yeah, he's in the top three for sure, especially with Nico on IR. I mean, kind of moving
he's
forward,
number one
if yeah,
on average basis. There, he's right there too. So yeah,
yeah, I don't, I he'd be in with probably Jefferson and Neighbors for me.
yep, yep. And then hi, Garrett Wilson. Nice to show your face. What do you have, like 18 targets, 19
Yeah,
targets, something
22.
crazy. 22. Damn, it did get to the 20s. I was looking at that stat line like right before the game ended, and I saw you had like 18 or 19. I'm like, that's a ridiculous stat line.
Should have
Gotta feel
been
good.
it. Yeah, I will say 22 targets and only having 101 yards is a
No.
little, I'd say a little underwhelming. He Garrett's he's an awesome player. He is a little bit frustrating because if you watch him play, he like on like a slant route, he'll catch a slant and like he'll like slide and catch it, and instead of just like catching it in stride and picking up like 6, 7 more yards, maybe breaking a tackle, um, he slides a lot, and I don't know why that is. But I mean, I mean, as long as Wilson's there, I mean, his target share is insane. So,
Sure.
yeah, weekly wide receiver too, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and that pretty much is the story of the matchup. I mean, he had those two guys go off for 70 essentially. I mean, yeah, I mean, Andre, he was already singing the blues, losing Rasheed Rice the week prior last week. Unfortunately, we didn't get the same crazy enthusiastic Andre as we were maybe typically used to on this pod. But
Hmm.
hey, he's got some exciting pieces still. I think even with some of the injuries, they're just a lot of letdown on his side. Like, I mean, Jaden Daniels has been a home run. I think that's a great, honestly, just a great play. I think he was getting a lot of hype, but I didn't necessarily think how good he was going to be this early. And he's been great. He's been incredible. I mean, you kind of noted him a
Yeah.
couple weeks ago on the pod of just him being kind of this elusive kind of running. I think you characterized him as the Wildly Coyote, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. You watch him. He's like the Wile E. Coyote running into the wall when at least in college. I mean,
yeah,
and I think week one, I think he wasn't really sliding much. I think he took like a massive shot at one point, and then you see like Dan Quinn was like,
yeah.
let's stop doing that. And I mean, he's been sliding. He's been really smart with when he's scrambling. I mean, I don't think there's anyone who's come out who looks. He's not Lamar, but he looks like Lamar in
I
terms
do.
of like how he's just so slippery, and he's an insane thrower. Um, and that offense is humming, man.
The fact that
He's kind of. Go ahead.
I was gonna say the fact that we're gonna get them playing each other this week, and I don't think it's a primetime game from my understanding. Like, I'm sure
It's
they
not.
didn't. I don't think so. I know they're playing Baltimore, but yeah, it's 1 o'clock.
Oh, it's the 1 o'clock game. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, of course, they probably couldn't predict that, but just their playing styles and like, I mean, Jaden Daniels. I mean, we already know Lamar's probably in the MVP category already in the small list, but Jaden Daniels. I mean, come on, like, he's got to be in the short list right now too. I mean, he's playing out of his mind. I mean,
Yeah.
they're probably
Yeah.
not going to sustain it. I mean, I don't know. I just don't. I don't think they're that good of a team in terms of just like the longevity of what they're doing. But maybe I'm wrong. I mean, Dan Quinn's been around. Cliff Kingsbury is obviously dialing it up, and this kid's playing well. So, but I mean, they keep it up. He's got to be in the discussion. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, just kind of running down some of the other disappointments on Andy's team, which is a lot of them right now,
Oh,
unfortunately.
yeah.
But like
Yeah.
Devo Samuel, like, is he if he's not healthy, like, why are they even playing him? Like, they're not even using him this year. Like, he had that
I know.
one, what was it, week one?
Yep.
First 2 weeks, I guess he like they
Yeah.
and then he got hurt, and
It
then
was
like they're
good.
not even using him now after he came back from his injury. So like it's gotta be frustrating. I mean, you gotta play him if he's playing, you gotta put him in your lineup, I think, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
I don't know why, because was it a groin injury that he had
yeah, I
in
thought
week
it
three?
might have been calf. I don't
I
no,
can't.
that's
Oh yeah, you're right. It was a calf injury, and my thing was like,
that was
if
a
it was,
multi-week injury.
yeah, and I thought if it was a multi-week, like that kind of stuff lingers, and I'm not sure why they wouldn't just put him on IR, or at least
Yep.
just be like he's going to be out for the next couple of weeks, similar to what LA is doing with Cooper Cup,
Yep.
especially with Jawan Jennings kind of coming along as like a pretty like reliable second option at receiver.
Yep.
Yeah, man. I mean, lumping in Debo and Brees and
His
Achan with Tua's
his running
injury,
backs,
and
they've been
and
awful.
now with Devontae, probably not playing, and he lost Rasheed Rice for the year. I mean, it's just, and Evan Ingram too. Like it's been a brutal run out for
Yeah.
Andy in terms of injuries and kind of outlook. So I mean,
I mean, a couple
yeah,
bright spots, I guess, like, in the interim, we'll say, and he had a good year last year, so I thought this was a good pick. It just has a secondary guy. I mean, Jake Ferguson has been pretty solid. I mean, he does get a nice like kind of floor. I mean, kind of showing it
yeah,
the last 3 weeks. Like that's like top five tight end production this
yeah.
year.
He's a
If
good
you're getting a
player.
guy that puts like 10 to 15 up, so I mean that's kind of been nice for him. And then I mean,
Yeah.
he was talking about how soft, or how, I forgot how he described Rashee Rice in terms of his plantation and his workability. But gotta joking, all jokes aside, I mean, Kareem Hunt, what a pickup. I mean, the guy looks. They reeled back the clock for the guy in this offense and this team. Like he looks. I was
Yeah.
watching that game. I'm like, damn, like Kareem, they use it. They're constantly using him. Like he was in the game the whole time, like passing, rushing.
27 carries.
Yeah, it was insane, dude. I couldn't believe how much work the guy was getting, and like he was in on passing work too. Like Samaje Perine, who's now dropped, unfortunately, but he just isn't. He wasn't even a factor in at all in any part of the passing work. Like a couple here just to kind of like give Kareem Hunt a blow, but like this guy came off the streets 2 weeks ago. He's like the number one running back for like one of the two undefeated teams in the NFL. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's wild. Yeah.
so that's got to feel good to
Who could
have.
have,
Uh,
yeah. I was just gonna say who could have predicted that the 245-pound white running back who had a fumbling issue wouldn't sustain that job? Who could have predicted that?
Not Arby's, I'll tell you that. Um,
No,
but
certainly
but
not.
and who also could predict that in the year 2024, Kareem Hunt was going to outscore Devon A. Chan and Bruce Hall combined. Bruce Hall's been,
Insane.
I don't know what's going on there. I mean, just I know Braylon, he's looked good, but the fact that like they like his, I don't think he's rushed over 60 yards, 62. Like it's just crazy. Like I don't understand the usage for Brees Hall and like how they're not getting him work. I mean, I guess they've been throwing it more, obviously, with Rodgers being healthy this year and as opposed to what they were doing last year. But I mean, what's your takeaway? I mean, you think it's going to be more of a split? I mean, that's your team, so you watch him probably more than any of
Um,
us.
yeah, I think in terms of Brees, they're definitely not scheming him up in the passing game as well as I thought they would have. In terms of getting him out on screens, getting him on quick hitters, it's kind of just been like, and even like check and releases, like coming up, maybe like chipping a an edge rusher and then just like getting out into the flat and giving them the ball in
So
space. They haven't really done a lot of that. And that that goes into the ineptitude of Nathaniel Hackett. But I think that was partially one of the reasons why Salah was fired, and this is a larger conversation that I don't want to get into. But
fair.
if you watch Brees in post game interviews and even like pre-game stuff, like warming up, he just seems sort of checked out. He doesn't seem as locked in as he should be. And I think it's kind of showed on the field where like he's not as dynamic as he looked last year. And I think that was partially a big reason why they moved on from Salah. I don't think it's not anything, you know, Rodgers didn't
Nah, he
fire
came
him. He
out.
didn't do anything like that.
He
But
said his piece
I
on the McAfee show, so I think I take him at his
yeah,
word. It seemed pretty
yeah,
legit.
I do too. Yeah, but I think and then there's talk of the Jets moving to Todd Downing as play caller. I think that's probably going to happen this week. I don't know how big of an upgrade that is. I do think it's an upgrade from Nathaniel Hackett. But I think the roles and the expectations of where Brees is, I think Braylon Allen should get more of the stuff on the ground, at least in early downs, in terms of just like churning out stuff inside the 20s or between the 20s. And I think Brees should be more featured as like an Aaron Jones plus type role in sort of like a Packers style offense that Rodgers ran before.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I think we need to adjust expectations with Brees, similar to how we did with Bijan. I think if I was
Yeah.
drafting now, I would take Bijan over Brees, and that wasn't the case coming into the year. But it kind of sucks. But I think ultimately, I think they'll get it back on track because I do think changing the coach, changing the vibes, changing the energy of how everything is around the Jets, I think can really help. And in fairness, they have played some rough defenses
Sure.
in the past couple weeks with New England and Denver and Minnesota. I think has been really bad. And Breeze was awesome the first 3 weeks, so I don't think it's been
It's true.
something where I don't think it's like as dire as a lot of people might make it out to be, but it's definitely frustrating for Andy. Like I totally get it. But I think this could be a really really nice get right spot for him against Buffalo on Monday night.
Good to, yeah, I mean, there definitely needs to be some good vibes going the Plantations way. I mean, it's been a slippery slide from first. I mean, he looked real hot when the team was healthy, and we did say he was a little bit top heavy with kind of a lack of bench, I'll say. Yeah, we
But
talk about
yeah,
Adams, but oh, he has Burrow too. I always kind of forget that he has Burrow. Could
yeah,
be a
make
little
a
trade
trade.
chip. Could be a little trade chip. Yeah, could be a trade chip.
Because I
I think
assume
good.
I assume he would want to trade Burrow, just to try to keep
Keep
Daniels.
value.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, but
good point.
yeah, man. I mean, we could put a bow on week 5. We can kind of move into week 6 and make some
Yeah.
picks here.
Yeah, let's
Starts
go
tomorrow
run through.
night.
Yeah, that's first. We're kind of getting back on the regular schedule, doing these on Wednesdays, which is kind of nice. We've been doing them kind of Fridays and Saturdays with the fill-in co-hosts and guests, we'll say. But yeah, we'll run down these quick. I mean, Andy and I flew kind of through these last week, but we did have the Thursday nights to kind of point
Yep,
totals to kind of go off of. But
sure.
I get Phil. Yeah, I got Jefferson on bye. That's pretty much the only thing that I got to deal with this week. Looks like on his side, pretty much everybody's playing. Besides Jones. Yeah, I know we talked about Waddle, but um, yeah, I mean, initially, obviously, I have a slight projection point total in terms of the favorite. I think I'm going to go with me here, just kind of looking kind of down the list here. I got some pretty favorable matchups, I think Baltimore's going to have to throw. I sat Flowers for Wicks last week, just thinking Wicks was going to get some serious volume, and he did have a couple drops and a couple looks that were just like a little bit off from Jordan, but they're playing at home against Arizona. I know Dobbs probably will play this week, but I don't think Watson will. If he does, then I have to consider which one of my Packers receivers I'm going to have to play in my flex. But um,
Yeah.
I do. I mean, Swift's kind of been in a smash spot the last 2 weeks. I don't see that slowing down, and they're playing Jacksonville, so um, interesting, like you said, that I think my Buffalo guys are definitely going to be in a tougher matchup going into Monday night against at the Jets. And it's tough to rely on two skilled players against good D, but Derek London's in a good spot. Jordan Love's in a good spot. I don't know. I give myself a slight favor here, which I hate picking myself. I really do. I feel like I'm putting my jinx on myself, but
Yeah.
I do. I think I'm going to go with May.
Yeah, I get that. I think this has a potential sneakily to be the highest scoring matchup of the week.
Okay,
Just right
okay, I
off the
like that.
bat, I think a lot of people are in really good spots. For on both sides.
Hmm.
I would be more concerned with Kincaid than I would on James Cook. The Jets'
For sure.
run D has been a lot worse than their passing D. So I think the way you attack the Jets D now, I mean, it's totally unpredictable with how things are going to look with Ulbrich. And I know Saleh, runs the defense, obviously, or it's his sort of defense, but Ulbrich's was their DC, and he kind of runs the defense, calls when they blitz, calls the rotations, all that. So um, I think it'll be a little bit of a lower scoring game. But I mean, he's just been a machine. I do think you're in a pretty good spot with Houston playing against Drake May in his first start. Now they
Yeah,
go on the road, but I mean, New England's offensive line is awful, and
yeah.
Houston, I think, has one of the best pass rushes in the league with Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. But I mean, I think Phil has a couple players who are actually in really good spots. I think Fields is in a really good spot against Vegas. Who knows what's going to happen with Olave with Spencer Rattler starting? He was just announced today that he's
Yep.
starting. I mean, he's a total unknown, but he looked awesome in the preseason. So, we'll kind of see. I think it actually could be a little bit of a boon for Olave if Rattler doesn't take like as many deep shots as Carr did with Shaheed, and maybe he kind of works the intermediate with Olave a
Sure.
little bit more. McLaurin's in a really good spot against Baltimore. I think that is a potential to be a higher scoring game also. And then I think this could potentially be the X factor in the matchup with Phil's two backs. Bijan is in
Hmm.
a smash spot against Carolina. I think it's a perfect time for him to get right. And Tony Pollard is in a really good spot against Indy. So and to be honest, I think this could be a week where like Tyler Lockett catches like a long touchdown because he's kind of due to catch
Probably.
like one of those like mass. He's due to get his first touchdown of the year, so I think he could be in a pretty solid spot. So ultimately, I think this is going to be a higher scoring game. I will side with your team. over Phil, but I do think it's going to be higher scoring, and I think it'll be potentially the highest scoring matchup of the week.
Like that, good projection. Here we go. I mean, this is a nice little matchup. I haven't really looked at anyone's teams before we pull these up. So,
Oh yeah,
number
I haven't
one
either.
seed, number one seed going against the Bastards, who are probably looking to try to get back on the win column. See what's going on here. Just kind of looking at the matchups. I like, I like some of the Goose's matchups. Just looking down his stuff. Yeah, it's gonna
I'm
be a good
gonna
one too.
take. Yeah, I agree. I'm gonna take Logue in this one. No, I'm gonna change. I'm gonna take Aaron. Um, no, sorry. I'm gonna go with Logue. I think, and the reason being was because I think there was a couple matchups where I was kind of like, I'm not really sure. Mike Evans historically doesn't really produce against New Orleans, so I think it could be a Godwin game. Um, but
I already take the
I don't know,
Bastards.
man. I don't know, man. I like
I'm taking Aaron. I'll come out and give my you could flip flop if you want.
go for it. Yeah,
But yeah, I like some of his matchups. I mean, I think Chase again gonna have a big game. Seattle just, I mean, if they do anything like they did, I know they're home, but um, they just the back end of that defense has just been looking rough. So I mean, if Brock Purdy could definitely throw Thursday night all over Seattle, I think if they need to. Which I like some of his matchups. The only one I don't really like is that Jerome Ford play. I mean, coming into Philly after they just came off of a bye. I mean, I think Philly's going to be a tough team to run on or really score on, and Cleveland's looked pretty inept with Deshaun Watson. So why doesn't Philly just pack the box and see if Deshaun Watson's going to throw it? I mean,
right,
why not?
right,
I
right,
guess more to come with Mixon. I mean, he might be able to get Mixon back, but he hasn't practiced really at all in like 3 or 4, like 3.5 weeks. So
right.
um, I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens with him. But that's really the only matchup I don't really like. I mean, I think Garrett Wilson, kind of keeps on that little hot streak. Yeah, I'm going to go with Aaron. I like Aaron by a couple points.
Um, I'm gonna I'm gonna stick with I'm gonna take the Bastards.
All right.
I think fantasy's weird, and I think this could be a week where like Antonio Gibson scores a touchdown, um, just like randomly. I don't really love Christian Kirk and where he's at. Brock Bowers, who knows what's going to happen with Aiden O'Connell, but I mean, Brock Bowers is a monster.
Mhm.
And I know at least Pittsburgh, they're really good on the boundary in terms of like their corners and everything, and their safety play has been a little suspect. I mean, Minka Fitzpatrick hasn't been what he normally is. And I think it could be. I mean, I think Diggs is just going to get fed with targets. So yeah, I'll take the Bastards.
Yeah, a little split there. Go with another pretty hot team against a team coming off his first win. It's pretty lopsided just in terms of total points so far. I go through it here real quick, but Singletary. I mean, I guess a lot of cues here. The only one I guess I'm questioning is I think Devontae Smith practiced this today.
Yeah,
Um,
the report I
Singletary.
saw was the report I saw on Devontae or on Smith was that they expect all
Both of them
three
back.
of both him and AJ Brown back.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. So even regardless of that, I mean, it's kind of hard to kind of overlook just some of these point total projections and the matchups that Mills' teams in. I gotta go with Beef. I mean, it's kind of hard to go against them. Some
Same.
I don't see some of these guys not getting to what they're projected at just based off their opponent. Maybe ETN slightly gets the downtick, but other than that, I mean, he's in a pretty good spot. Anthony's gonna need to pop off a couple deep ones, and like I said, with Shaheed, we don't really know. I mean, that could be an interesting one. And then yeah, I think Cousins is gonna need a big Cousins week again if he's gonna pull it off another upset.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I gotta I
I
gotta go Beef.
yeah, no, I like Nils' team a lot this week. I think he's in a really good
Sorry,
spot on a lot of his player. What's up?
I said sorry. I forgot to I closed it by accident.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. I think Nils' team is in a really good spot with a lot of players. I think it could be I think it could be a huge bounce back spot for Jordan Mason. I think I think the Kyler and McBride stack. I think that game could shoot out. And I think this could be like a pretty big smash spot for both Lamb and Metcalf.
Me too.
So yeah, I mean Brian Robinson, like he's probably gonna score again. I don't know why he wouldn't. He's their hammer
Don't
when
get me
they get
wrong.
close, and in a high scoring game, like it's a really good environment for him to get there. So yeah, I like Nels this week.
So this is billed to be well, I guess one of the higher projection totals in terms of two managers, the combined score, I should say. Uh, yeah, Arby's got a pretty much full team this week, so I'm sure he's licking his chops. He gets Hurts back, he gets St. Brown back. Higgins is coming off a good week. He seems looking strong. Let me see what we kind of know what this is going to be a great matchup. I mean, they're both teams are basically this is their team. Got Pickens in is oh Williams is on bye. That makes sense. Okay, we were just talking about his
Mm.
like kind of three-headed
Oh
running back
yeah,
monster.
I was like, where's Kyron? Oh, he's on
Yep,
a bye. Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
yeah. So
got it.
this is gonna be interesting. I'm gonna take Arby's. I like Arby's team this week. I just think like
Same.
he's in a lot of these guys are in some smash spots. I mean,
Yeah, I agree.
his top three guys I love: Hurts, St. Brown, and Higgins, all in great matchups. I mean, Laporta maybe
Yeah,
gets back on schedule here a little bit. That's kind of been his kind of disappointing play. We just talked about Chase Brown in his last matchup. Walker will get his. Yeah, he's in a nice spot. Yeah, I mean, Josh Allen could be the letdown here for Steve, in my opinion. I mean, just historically against the Jets, and if that's a kind of a lower scoring game, on Monday night, then he's going to need all the points he can get just to kind of make up for it. Because I think, yeah, that'll be the last guy to go in this matchup. Yeah, I like Arby's.
yeah, I do too. I don't agree with the projection on LA with 12 in Denver. Um, Denver's offense is like kind of got it together.
Yep.
Um, and I think Bo Nix has played pretty well. The last at least the last week he looked pretty rough against the Jets, but
Hmm.
um I feel like they should be kind of closer to like 9. But yeah, I'm gonna take Arby's as well.
All right. I like that too. That's gonna be a good one. That's built to be a good one too.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
let's get to
I think
you.
this could in terms of scoring, I think this could be one of the higher scoring ones because I think that Green Bay Arizona matchup is going to be the highest point total of the week along with Baltimore and Washington.
You're saying,
Interesting to see what those lines are in terms of
man,
over unders. I don't have that in front of me, but
yeah, I was gonna say I haven't looked. That's usually the Sunday morning thing along with the fantasy lineup is throwing a couple bets in. But
yeah,
let's go to you. I mean, you're facing a pissed off, and he's coming north, the blizzard. Um,
yeah.
this I haven't looked at anything here yet, so we'll take a peek. I know he's got to play Kate Otten this week. He's got the backup anyways with Taylor. So this is pretty much his
Man,
lineup.
Kate Otten, the wind sprint king. My man runs a shit ton of routes and does not get many
That's
targets.
not doing a lot out there. Let's just take a peek here. I had one, yeah, two solid weeks. Anytime you get near 10 as a tight end, but yeah,
Yeah,
definitely
right.
not
Yeah,
reliable though. That's for sure. Let's see.
yeah.
What's the deal with Neighbors? Is he playing? I
He
guess he's
doesn't
sat a
practice
week, so
yet.
no, I think he'll play.
I think he'll play too. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think he'll play.
that Thursday night matchup for you with Seattle is pretty much going to make and break your week, unfortunately.
It is. It is.
Or fortunately, could be good. But yeah, I mean they're home, so and Gino's been chucking it. But if you get a nice little stack with JSN there, and it starts out on a decent trajectory, that'll help you.
Yeah.
This is gonna be a
Yeah.
good one.
I
Your RB two
I'm
is
I'm
still like you gonna play Bigsby?
I'm not sure. I'm between Bigsby or Spears. I think I just put Spears in there because he's projected higher, and I kind of wanted to be over 100.
I would
But
play that game
but
too.
you know what I mean.
Yeah, I've done
But
that before.
I think I'm ultimately gonna play Bigsby. I don't know how I could sit him. You know what I
No.
mean? And especially if Tennessee's in a pretty favorable game script, I think they might just
Pollard
run
game.
Pollard. But yeah, I think gonna end up playing Bigsby. Um, I'm gonna pick myself here. Maybe it's a Hail Mary desperation, just putting out vibes that I get off off my 4 game losing streak. And this is, kind of pretty much my season because moving into next week, you know, I expect Hawkinson back. So I think if I'm 1-5, I think I pretty much have to go on a miracle run to make the playoff. Um,
Seven
so
teams, yeah.
I think I'll get to 2-4. And and then kind of moving into week 7 with Hawkinson coming back. So um, yeah, I'm gonna pick myself here. I do worry about Lamar kind of going off
Yeah.
again, and I worry about DJ Moore with Jacksonville's secondary. You know, uh,
I'm gonna pick the Blizzard. And for a couple of those reasons that you just said, I like those first two matchups. I think Amari Cooper, unless there's some garbage time touches there, I don't really like his
yeah,
matchup against Philly. I think Philly's at home is going to come out, and it should come out in a smash spot. You would think after the bye, but yeah, I don't love the Amari Cooper play. He's got Sermon, obviously. We just talked about that from last week, so he can really play anyone at Tennessee. But at home, Tennessee's been pretty decent against the run overall. I mean, they haven't been an
yeah, they
awful
have been.
defense. So, I mean, I don't see like a huge game out of either one of them. I mean, outside of the touchdown that you got to worry about anytime, you're playing against anybody in fantasy. But um, and then Darnell Mooney, I think, is still in a great spot, at Carolina. So,
Yeah,
yeah, we'll see. I think I'm going to pick him just because I like a couple of those matchups. But I go back to Thursday night. Like, if you have a good Thursday night at a Gino and, JSN kind of does what he does, like, you're in a pretty good spot because the rest of your matchups I think, are pretty favorable and just in terms of where your guys are at. So I got Ertz. Huh? I'm just looking at your team here. Yeah, I guess
I know.
Hawkinson.
Can we for Amari Cooper, like, can we please, and just for like vibes of everything around Cleveland, can we please
Just
like
trade him.
we got to get Jameis, man. Like,
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, for
what?
sure.
Oh my God. I mean, it's so
They're
with
committed.
Watson. Like, does he even want to be there?
They,
You watch his body language. Like, he's taking so many sacks. Like, we got to
they,
get
they,
Jameis in there, man.
yeah. I mean, they paid the guy though, so like that's the other thing. It's like they
Yeah,
have to, right? I mean, what are they gonna do? It's like fully guaranteed. They have to, like, pretty much have to keep playing him. I
yeah,
hope he gets.
and
I hope he gets hurt.
I kind of wonder. I kind of wonder if Stefanski can even bench him. Like, if you know what I mean. Like,
He has the
if it's
authority.
even in. Yeah, if he even can. Like, you know.
Yeah,
But
it's
we'll
just
see.
it's tough. It's just the most unreliable receiver in fantasy, Mark Cooper. Like, he'll pop off for 30 with two tutties like 2 weeks ago, and then just go absolute ghost because that team's just putrid. So I don't know. Let's go to the final matchup here. I mean, Dre reeling, losers of two, and then yeah, tough one for Ryan against me. But yeah, Ryan's kind of looking up. Still got a good team, but this is he's got to feel like he's got to get to 500. I mean, just based off of his roster, I think he's got a good team, but sitting
Yeah.
2-3, he's got to be like, damn, And then he loses Pittman, like we just mentioned, who hasn't really been doing anything, so not really a
Right.
loss, I don't think, too specifically for him. But Dak's his boy. He's been riding Dak out this year, which is an interesting play. I guess Dak does chuck, but let's see. I'm looking at the rosters here. He's got to play Eckler, huh?
I'm gonna take Andy here. I uh, dude, doing pick'ems is so hard.
It really is. I'm gonna go Ryan, which I just think, like, looking at his roster, like, this matchup, like, Andy's relying on some interesting names. to get to his point total this
Yeah,
week.
you're right. I think I'm gonna take Ryan also.
Yeah, just like it's hard not to. I mean, Debo's going to have a good game, which is, I mean, he could, but that's definitely going to be the kickoff for his week for sure. He's going to either be down the dumps or like kind of looking like okay, I got a little bit of an outlet here to beat a good team. Adversely, he's going against Ayuk, so definitely something to play for and see who gets the volume. Eckler's an interesting play. I mean, he hasn't looked terrible, but he like to your point. I mean, Robinson, definitely Robinson 1A to Eckler 1B. I think it was pretty clear cut. I mean, Robinson's been getting in the end zone too. So, and then he has to play. He's going to go with Myers too this week. Kind of has to, I guess, based off of Hunt's on by, Adams is out, and Achan is out. He's got to move Burrow. I'm surprised he hasn't yet. He's just got to get another skill player. Doesn't matter what
Yeah,
position.
yeah, it's time. It's definitely time. Um, I will say for Jacoby Myers, I actually don't mind that play. He, he I he when Aiden O'Connell was playing last year, I know he hyper focused on Devontae Adams. So I feel like that offense is super consolidated. I mean, I think Brock Bowers, he's probably going to get like 10, 12 targets again. I think that's
Yeah.
pretty much locked in. But I think Jacoby Myers can push for like 10, 11 targets, with Trey Tucker kind of getting maybe like five mixing in downfield. But I think it could be a potential upgrade to Aiden O'Connell. And I know he had some spike games last year, but we'll kind of see. I think this is going to be a get right spot for Brees. And maybe Wandale can kind of like PPR scam his way to like 15, 18 points again.
Kind of
Um,
has been.
but yeah, but I mean, with Ryan's team, like,
Look at these
I think
horses, man.
I think Jameson can get there against Dallas maybe for like a deep one. Um,
His
yeah,
RBs, his RBs are like they're gonna put
Saquon
up
and Henry
40.
is just yeah, and I think Chris Godwin this could be kind of a get right. I don't mean to say get right because he's been so solid, but I think it
Yeah.
could be a Godwin game more so than a Mike Evans game, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So
Yep.
yeah, I'm gonna take Ryan.
All right. So overall, I mean, we got a couple mixed in there, which is good. So it breaks it up a little bit with some of these pick'ems. I think overall I've gone 4-2, 4-2, 4-2. So
There you
not a
go.
bad stretch here for the pick'ems.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens this week. But yeah, I mean, as we can see, so kind of looking through some of these, there's definitely some buys coming up, significant buys for some teams in a row.
Yep.
Some people are good about that. I'm not. I'll raise my hand. I'm not good at looking at like when I'm drafting bye weeks necessarily aren't in my thought process.
Nah, me
At
either.
least not. At least not usually until like the later rounds. And honestly, it really never is. I'm typically getting pretty drunk by that point, and I'm just picking the guys that I kind of like. Let's just be realistic here. But yeah,
I
it's
yeah.
interesting now seeing how it breaks out though, because like it does come into a factor where I've looked ahead. I'm like, damn, two guys on by that week. Like, damn, I should have probably thought like a little bit differently when I drafted.
Yeah, I normally only look at bye weeks if I'm on like the onesie positions. Like like
True.
like if I was taking like a back quarterback or something like that, I maybe wanted a different one.
Tight end.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but I think at that point it doesn't really matter. Like if you have three wide receivers you feel really good about and they're like all in the same bye week, like
Chalk it
then you
up.
just get that. Yeah, then you just get that's just a tough week for you, and then you just get them for the rest of the year. So,
It's true.
um, kind of is what it is. But yeah, like I said, we're getting, or like we said, we're getting into the
Past the
thick of it,
quarter
man. Yeah, I mean, some teams, might be axed at this point. Come next week.
after this week. Yeah.
So yeah, but
Awesome, Matt,
cool,
man. Appreciate you
good
jumping
stuff.
on. Good luck
Hell
to
yeah,
all the managers this week, and we'll be back next week to see what shakes loose.
cool, sounds good.
Peace.
Peace.